Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming along tonight to how to find customers in tough times. Now, those of you who don't know me, I'm Janet Ferre. I'm an expert in sales and in particular closing. And we're going to look at ways of attracting customers. So that means finding out what they want, and that will help us do prospecting. So what main things are we going to be covering today? Very, very simple. We've only got an hour. I've allocated about half an hour afterwards for Q&A, but the main things we're going to be looking at is simple and effective prospecting techniques. And the angle I'm coming from here is techniques that are free, because especially if you're starting a business, there's lots of stuff you can do for free. And when I started, I had no money at all. So I have a great fondness for things that can help us. So the main things we're going to be focusing on are texting and messaging, creating a positioning statement, and how to attract people online. Okay, so very, very quickly, we don't need big introductions, but I'd just like to go around the room and make sure everyone can hear. So Saz, would you introduce yourself, please?
Certainly. My name's Saz Twinogo-Maud, and I have recently joined Janet. I'm coming on board as a head of communications with Tadpole. My background, as I was explaining to Gary before the rest of you joined, is in outsourcing, sales, and communication.
Thank you very much, Saz. Gary, would you introduce yourself, please?
Pleasure. I work with Janet. She's my colleague and business partner in another venture that we played around with, and I'm very excited to be part of this workshop for sure. It's going to be really fun.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Christine, welcome. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Christine Lucas. My background is hairdressing and beauty technician, which I had for about 25 years, but I've just recently changed onto properties. I'm on service accommodation, which is Airbnb and Booking.com, which was just registered in June. I've not got off the ground yet. This is my first day.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. And Tamzin, please introduce yourself.
So hi everyone, I'm Tamzin, and I work with individuals and teams to help them understand themselves, to discover what makes them tick, and appreciate that others may talk, so that they can work even better together. And I use personality profiling to do that.
Oh, thank you so much. Jay, can you hear us? I'm not sure if Jay is there. Okay, not to worry. We will jump to Amit, who's just come in. Good evening, Amit. Would you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Amit. I work for an engineering company. We manufacture security equipment, but also I'm trying to launch my own small little business selling machine parts, and I'm having problems trying to, identify right products people would buy, because there are lots of things around. I just don't want to be purchasing things and stocking equipment which no one would buy. So I'm just trying to focus on the customer and try to figure out how to reach my customer. And that's the reason I'm on your today's Zoom conference.
Oh, thank you. Well, I hope it really helps. I'll just check to see. Jay, can you hear me? All right, not to worry. Okay, so thank you all of you for being here, and well done to you, because I think I only posted this about 36 hours ago, so credit to you for spotting it and going to the trouble of turning up. As I said earlier, I am recording it, so if you want to access the recording afterwards, I will definitely make that available to you. So let's, without further ado, as they say, crack on. So first of all, got a bit of a question for you, and we can use the chat for this because I like to be interactive. So my question to you is, do you enjoy selling? Put yes if you love it, no if you hate it or you try and avoid it, or maybe if you kind of, well, sometimes it's all right and sometimes it's not so all right. Just want to sort of get a feel for where everybody is in the room. So yeah, Gary's yes sometimes, Christine's a yes, Tamsin's a no. Thank you for being honest, Tamsin. Okay, now that's pretty normal. Okay, whatever your position is at the moment in terms of how you feel about sales, I hope I'm going to help you with the very first bit we're going to do before I go on to some specific techniques for you. So first of all, if you don't like sales, the good news is it's not your fault. The reason that you find sales either a bit unpleasant or downright scary is because your brain is protecting you. Your brain still thinks we're walking around on the plains hundreds of thousands of years ago, where pretty much everything will either kill you or eat you. So your brain says, look, if it's frightening, best thing you can do is run. Don't confront it, just save yourself. But of course, now we don't experience that sort of danger. The danger of sales is in your head, but your brain doesn't know that because your brain hasn't evolved. So all your brain tells you is that thing's nasty, stay out of the way, it's frightening. So it's very important that you realize that if you don't like sales, not your fault. Now, another reason you might not like sales is you don't want to be this guy. And he's the cliche of the salesman. So sorry, gentlemen, this is more of a problem for you than it is for the ladies. But we don't want to be the big cheesy grin, foot in the door, won't stop talking, push, 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 cliche of a salesperson. So that's the second reason we may not like sales. And then there's a third reason. And the third reason is ever so simple. No one has ever taught us what to do. Before you knew how to walk, you couldn't do it. And then you learned. It's the same with riding a bike, learning to swim, learning to drive a car. Until someone shows you and you practice, then it's really, really hard. So this is what happens. Those three things create a sort of perfect Venn diagram. You've got fear, because your brain is doing that to you. You've got worry about your reputation. You don't want to be cheesy, pushy, foot in the door salesman. And you also have a lack of skills because no one's ever taught you. So poor you, you're stuck in the middle of these three. And that's why it can feel as though the job of selling is sometimes absolutely overwhelming. So I'm going to share with you this cartoon, the very first training I ever did. And my background in sales is Xerox, which is an extremely sales-driven organization. And you can't get promoted in Xerox. I don't know if it's changed, but it used to be the case. You couldn't get promoted in Xerox unless you'd spent at least a year in direct sales. And when I joined Xerox, they took about 13 weeks to put me on my first ever sales training program. And I was doing okay in those 13 weeks, but I was convinced I was going to get the sack, they were going to fire me, someone would realize I didn't know what I was doing, had no idea how to sell. And then they put me on the sales training after 13 weeks, and the relief that I had a structure, and after that I flew. But this cartoon was on the cover of the training manual, and I love it because it encapsulates exactly what sales is all about. You're the chap on the right who's got a solution that the customer on the left perhaps thinks they're not interested in, or they're too busy to talk to you about. And there could be people in the middle who are either blocking you from talking to the customer or even trying to get the customer's attention, but it can be tough. But remember this cartoon, because that's why we're in sales. It's to help people. Okay, so why am I qualified to tell you all this stuff? Well, just a little bit of brief history of me. So I worked in Xerox for 7 years. Then I ran a college with my husband for 17 years. And when that closed, I set up Tadpole Training. And I called it Tadpole Training because of my surname, which is Efere. It's Nigerian. And no one can pronounce it, no one can spell it, and no one can remember it. So I thought, well, I need a slightly more catchy business name than that. And I came up with Tadpole Training. But when I started, I had no money. And when I say I had no money, I couldn't afford internet at home. So this, do you recognize where that is, Gary? Oh, you're on mute.
McDonald's on the A10.
It's McDonald's on the A10 in Enfield, correct. That's shocking that you know that. Now, what I used to do, because I couldn't afford internet at home, I used to go to McDonald's with my tatty old laptop. I used to take my own lunch, and they let me. So pack lunch to McDonald's. I used to sit in the corner, buy one coffee, that lasted me all day. And I started because I knew what to do. I knew how to start a business. And I knew I could be a sales trainer because I had it all up here because of the years and years I'd spent in sales. So when people say you need a lot of money to set up a business, if I'm honest, I'd have been successful faster if I'd had a bit of money behind me. For example, my first website was dreadful because I did it myself, but at least I had a website. So you can be successful in business without money. And the tips I'm going to share with you today are pretty much as free can be. So I set up Tadpole Training in McDonald's, and within 2 years, I've been shortlisted by my institute for Sales Trainer of the Year. I was a regular contributor to a sales magazine called Sales Mastery. This is one of my super proud moments. In 2015, I won at Enfield's Startup Business of the Year. That's me getting my award. Got featured in The Guardian. I reached the final of their Startup Business of the Year. And since then, I've been really lucky to speak at places like Pharmacy Forward, which was at Olympia, and also speak at the 40th Business Show. About sales. So I know my stuff with sales. And what do I do now? Well, there's three main things I do. I do sales training. So I've got an open course called How to Sell. I've got one starting next week. I do bespoke training for organizations, in particular estate agents and accountants come up quite a lot. And I do selling with LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I get most of my big customers from there. I also do one-to-one business coaching because people kept asking. So 3.5 years ago, I launched my coaching program, all focused on sales. And for those people who I can't convince to fall in love with selling, I do a done-for-you sales service. I've got a separate company called We Do Sales Calls, and we do any of the phone calls for you that you don't want to. So that's enough about me, but I thought it was important to give you context that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to sales. So at the beginning, I asked you, do you like selling? Do you not like selling? Are you kind of in the middle? Now, oh, Jay, oh, sorry, I've just seen your message. Yeah, don't worry, I won't ask you any more questions. I won't tell you a secret. So this is important. Whether or not you've had sales training, you're already an expert. Type yes in the chat if you enjoy shopping. And I'm not talking about the supermarket shop. I'm talking about the fun things, you know, like buying presents for your nearest and dearest or treating yourself. Gosh, Gary, you were fast with that. Yeah, everyone loves shopping because big yes. Saz. Right. So we know that buying stuff is fantastic. But here's the problem. What do we think of these? And again, in the chat, I want you to put the first words that come into your head when you see Indian call centers, insurance salespeople, used car salesmen. Oh, Christine hates shopping. I bet if someone came up with a nice HMO, you'd buy that. Yeah, see, I know you. I know you. All right. So when you see these phrases, Indian call center, insurance salespeople, used car salesman, what words or phrases come to your mind? So Saz says money. What other words come to your mind? Is that cold calls, Christine?
It is, yeah, cold calls.
Yeah. Fake, yeah. Pressure, completely agree. Yeah. And that's one of the problems with sales. And if you think back to that man going blah, blah, blah at the beginning, this reinforces what we think of as the cliche of sales. So I've got a little exercise for you. You don't have to share it with me, but I just want to take you through some steps. We've already established you like buying. You don't like being sold to. But from time to time, you will interact with people who do sell, and it's a really good experience. So I want you to have a think about when and where it was, and why was the experience good, and how did you feel afterwards. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share an experience I had, and I think you'll see where I'm coming from. So about 12, 13 years ago, I was in Dubai, and we went to United Arab Emirates, myself and my husband, and I wanted a gold watch. Now, I'd never owned a gold watch, but it's a good place to buy gold. And there are lots and lots of little shops where you can buy amazing gold things, and I wanted a watch. So we went to this one shop, and this man, he couldn't do enough for me. He brought out watch after watch after watch. And as I tried them on, I felt he was giving me good advice. If it didn't suit me, he said so. If it did suit me, he said so. And I found this watch, and I really mean it, this man couldn't do enough for me. And to this day, I still absolutely love that watch. Cost a flipping fortune, but it's a really, really beautiful, it's a cocktail watch apparently. I didn't know there were such things because I don't move in those circles. But it was lovely because I felt important. I was listened to. I wasn't rushed. Nothing was too much trouble. And even though it cost me a ton of money, it was a great experience. And I was floating once I left that place. Now, I hope, oh, Christine, yeah, love it. On my birthday, surprise perfume. Now look, if you have a good buying experience, there is a good chance that some of those words I've just said will resonate with you. So let's have a look at this list. Good selling is helpful. It's about listening to what the customer wants. It's about not rushing the customer, not forcing them. It's about making the customer feel important, asking loads of questions to understand what the customer wants, about being patient, and depending on what you're selling, explaining the benefits. Now have a little look at that list. I want you to write yes in the chat if you think you possess most of those qualities. Amit, yes. Saz, yes. Christine, ooh, yes. Gary, yes. Good. Yeah, here's the thing, you see. If that's your natural style, people will trust you. Let's flip it around. Would you trust someone who's unhelpful, who didn't listen to you, who forced and rushed you, who made you feel unimportant, who didn't ask you anything? Oh, I left this one out. Who didn't show good knowledge of what they do, who were impatient and who didn't bother to explain the benefits. You wouldn't trust them. Because here's the key. This is such a good quote from Zig Ziglar. If people like you, they'll listen to you. But if they trust you, they'll do business with you. Christine, would you go into partnership with a landlord if you thought they were going to rip you off?
No.
Absolutely not. Separately, I would encourage you to Google Zig Ziglar. He's dead now, but he was an American. He learned sales the hard way, door to door, selling insurance. He's got the most amazing voice, a real southern drawl. Gary's nodding. I think you must be familiar with him. The guy's amazing. He's well worth a listen to. Okay. So I thought this will help you. So before I go on to the tips, this is, I'm going to share with you a list. This has been scientifically proven, the 10 main reasons that people buy. Now, before I show you the list, I actually did a post on LinkedIn about this the other day. Actually, people only buy for 2 reasons. It's to move towards pleasure or to move away from pain. I'll give you an example. If I have toothache, well, if you had toothache, you'd probably do whatever you needed to do to get rid of that toothache, wouldn't you? Because I've had bad toothache before. It makes you fall over with the pain. So pain is probably a slightly stronger motivator than pleasure, but broadly speaking, everything falls into those 2 categories. So this is a list of the 10 most common reasons why people buy. It's from a book called eBook Secrets Exposed by Jim Edwards and David Garfinkel. Now, look, not every one of those will fit your business, but most people find that whatever their service is falls into the top 4. So most people are likely to use your service or buy your product because it moves you away from pain or closer to pleasure, which I've already mentioned. It helps them earn money, or it helps them save money. Now, interestingly, if you're in health or well-being, it's more likely that your customers will be motivated by the bottom 6. So save time, improve efficiency, easy to buy at convenience, exclusivity, status, scarcity, and habit. So all I want you to do is, I hope you're taking notes, but I'm just going to give you a few seconds. Write down which of those 10 reasons you think applies to your customers. So I'll just say them out loud if it helps you. So move away from pain. That can be physical or mental, by the way. Move closer to pleasure. So that'll be things like going on holiday. Earn money. Save money. Save time. Improve efficiency. It's easy to buy it, or it's convenient. Exclusivity and status. Scarcity, or habit. And I'll give you a good example of scarcity. When Concorde announced that they weren't going to fly to America anymore, that they were basically scrapping Concorde because it was uneconomical, suddenly all the tickets sold out because everyone wanted to go on Concorde because they knew that soon they wouldn't be able to. And that's the reason why you see adverts saying things like sale must end midnight, and then you rush and buy it. And then what do? They extend it by another 48 hours because they know it forces people to take action. And again, Gary's nodding because he's a marketer and he knows this stuff. You've got to watch him. He's clever. So I hope you've all written some of those down, because this will help you in the next bit we do. So we're going to go on now to my tips on prospecting. And this is where the fun starts. So what is prospecting? At its simplest level, prospecting is getting people interested in what you do. And the word prospecting comes from the search for mineral deposits. So things like precious metals, jewels, and usually you have to do prospecting for those things by drilling and excavation. And to find your precious bits of metal or your precious jewels, you often have to dig through a lot of rock and dust and dirt and mud. So it doesn't sound very glamorous, but it's worth it. The results are worth it. But it's a great analogy for you in business, because not everybody you come across is going to use you. Even someone big like Tesco doesn't chase all the people in the UK to come to their supermarket, because some people shop at Waitrose, some people shop at the pound shop, some people shop at Lidl, some posh people go to Harrods or Fortnum & Mason. Tesco know that not everyone will go shopping there. So if you know where your customers are, if you know where your jewels or your precious metal hang out, you're more likely to find them. And that's a good analogy for prospecting. So this is where we're going to share some tips. And remember, everything I'm going to share with you is free. So my first tip is to keep a warm prospects list. Now, once you're a bit established in business, the chances are you'll have some sort of database or customer relationship management system. This is just a paper version and a very simple one of that. Now, you might also say, well, I can use an Excel spreadsheet, so I don't need this. But let me explain why this sheet of paper could be transformational. Because the problem with a CRM or a spreadsheet is that it's hidden inside something like a computer. It's not in our face. What I would like you to do is, after this, get a sheet of paper draw some lines on it exactly like you've got here, and keep it on your desk the whole time. If necessary, sellotape it down, or put it in a plastic wallet and sellotape that to your desk so you can't avoid it. Let's look at what's contained in it. You're going to populate this with anyone who might be interested in what you do. So this could be literally friends and family. It could be leads that you've generated. It could be previous clients, prospects you haven't contacted for a while, acquaintances, brand new people you meet, maybe through networking, through this webinar. Maybe there's someone on this webinar and you think, well, that person might need my thing. Get in touch with them. And this is what you do. On your sheet of paper, your simple sheet of paper, you write down their name, their phone number, and their email if you can. You log the referral source. All that means is, how did you find out about them? So was it networking? Was it your friend John? Was it your mum's third cousin twice removed? Was it someone you met on holiday? Just write down where you found them. And that's important, because if you are getting a lot of prospects from the same place and it's a good source, you can put more effort into finding more people from a similar place. And then we've got main interests, concerns, or challenges. So let's just say, for example, you're a personal trainer. What you want to put here is, what things are bothering these prospects that might turn them into customers? So think back to that list of 10 motivators that make people buy. If you're a personal trainer, their challenges or concerns might be, I'm overweight, I'm not fit, I've had an accident and I need to recover, I'm getting older. It could be anything at all. Got heart problems, got diabetes. So you would write down the reasons why they could potentially work with you, and that will help you when later you want to have a conversation with them. And then I've put here, what's their status? So it's a prospect list, which means you're only going to put people on here who are interested. Now, interested is a very broad spectrum. So are they very interested, which means they're hot, or are they a bit interested, which means they're warm? So you can judge that. You can put hot, you can cross it out, and you can put warm if they cool off. If they get enthusiastic, you can cross it out and put hot. This piece of paper is going to get really messy, and that's the point. And then finally, when should you contact them next? Maybe you've had a conversation with someone on here and they say, well, look, now's not really convenient because I'm on furlough, I've got no money, but I'm going back at the end of November, for instance. Or maybe, oh, I don't know, perhaps you're, I don't know, selling wedding dresses, and they say, well, look, now isn't the right time because I'm not getting married till next June, so I won't want to buy my dress till about February. Okay, so you write down when to contact them next. And the point behind this sheet is, because you've got it on your desk and because you're writing on it the whole time and you're crossing stuff out all the time, by making yourself pay attention to it, you will suddenly start to see that you're moving people through from prospects to customers. So that's my first tip, and it's completely free. Any questions on that before we move on to my next tip? Okay then, good. So how do you decide who is worth contacting? Well, you need a man in a hurry. And please remember this picture of the little guy with a clock on his head and the legs running. Man in a hurry. A MAN is an acronym, and this is what it stands for. It's a way of qualifying whether a prospect is worth bothering with. That's all it is. So MAN stands for money, authority, and need. And I'm going to explain what each of those is. I've added urgency. Now, I just gave you the example, didn't I, of a wedding dress. If someone is getting married in 3 years' time, they're not really in the market for a wedding dress. There's no urgency. But if they're getting married next week and they don't have a wedding dress, you do have urgency. So that I've added that to it. But let's go through what money, authority, need is all about, because this will really help you when you're deciding where to channel your effort and your activity. So the first one is money. And what this means is, does the person you're talking to have control of the budget? Now, if it's an individual that you're dealing with, there's a good chance that they are in control of the budget. But if your target customers are businesses, the person you're talking to might not be the person who makes the financial decision about going ahead. And even in couples, I mean, the classic is if in married couples, if right, so the gentlemen, we've got a couple of chaps here. We've got Jay, we've got Amit, and we've got Gary. Right, just as a tester for you here, if you were going to buy a new car, would your significant other have something to say about how much you were going to spend on it?
No.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Tamsin's nodding. I don't know why I asked the men. I think it's because I mentioned cars. But it's just, yeah, exactly. So sometimes it is not one person who makes the decision. Sometimes it's not the person you're talking to who makes the decision. Sometimes it's more than one person. So you need to understand who signs off the check, who will authorize the payment. Does that make sense? Okay, then. So that's money. So next, we have authority. So what do I mean by authority? Well, again, in business, if you're dealing with companies, again, the person who approaches you might not be the boss. In other words, the person who makes the decision about who is who's going to be an appropriate supplier or business partner. So welcome, Leon. So how can you find out who has authority? Well, it's usually the most senior person who's involved in the decision-making process in the company. So if you are, for instance, talking to someone who's an executive of whatever title, it could be that their manager has the authority. It could be you've got to go up a level and speak to the director. It could even be the business owner. So a good tip here is to ask this question. If you just say, is it your decision? Most people will go, yeah. Not because they're mean or they're lying, but they just think, well, yeah, it is my decision. And it's only when you get to the nitty-gritty that you discover that they're not. So a better question to ask is, what's the decision-making process in your organization? And I used to use this a lot at Xerox because I dealt with very big clients, some of the corporates. It was extremely complicated, particularly government departments and some of the larger pharmaceutical companies I dealt with. So if I asked them what is the decision-making process, they would often tell me lots of names, which meant the sale was complicated, but at least I knew who to speak to. And if it's extremely complicated, I used to just go, I don't know, I can't write all that down. Here's a sheet of paper, please. Would you draw it for me? And then they draw all the lines, and this person reports to that person, and then they think of other people. But actually, it's really helpful because I bet we've all done it. We've pitched our amazing thing to someone, and they've gone, yeah, that's really good. Okay, I'll ask my boss. And then, you know, you're never going to replicate what you've just said through a second person because they don't know your topic. So we've done money, we've done authority. And now we have need. Now need, very simply, is do they have a use or requirement for what it is you're offering? If you're selling apples and they want oranges, you're going to struggle. If they want a bicycle and you're selling cars, you're going to struggle. So do they actually need what you offer? And you'll only really uncover that by asking lots of really good questions, or perhaps if you've got a track record helping people like them and you understand what their needs are. And again, this goes back to the 10 motivators that I was talking about, the 10 reasons that people buy. If you know that people buy because your thing saves them time, then you can show them how they need what you have to offer. So we've done money, authority, need, and then I mentioned urgency. So do they need you now? Do they need you later? Or do they need you never? And remember what I said about those companies that advertise things and then the sale will end at midnight. They do that because they know this stuff works. They want to create a sense of urgency. So is there something you can do to create a sense of urgency? If they think your product is about to run out, they're more likely to buy it. In my world, what we often do is I have like early bird discounts on things like my training, because it helps me plan if people enroll on my training at least a week before, because then I know roughly how many numbers. So helps me, helps them, customers save a bit of money. So what can you do in your business to create a bit of urgency? Okay, so that is man in a hurry, money, authority, need and urgency, and that will help you decide who to spend time targeting. So what about actually having a conversation with someone? Now this will work either face-to-face, except we're not really doing much face-to-face at the moment, but it also works on the telephone, and it also works in things like webinars and Zoom meetings. Now, I don't know if you remember, but way back at the beginning, what I didn't do was I didn't introduce myself by going, "Hi, I'm a sales trainer and coach." And there's a reason I didn't do that, because although I think it's fantastically interesting, nobody else really does. It doesn't speak to you, it doesn't communicate to you. Instead, for those of you who are paying attention, I kicked off by saying, I'm an expert in sales and in particular closing, because it's more interesting to you in the room, because you've come here not to hear about being a sales trainer, not to hear about being a coach. You've come here because you hope I'm going to help you with sales in some way. And although we're talking about prospecting today, most people, bottom line, they want to close the deals because that's what brings in the money. So I'm going to teach you how to write a positioning statement just like this for you. So you kick off by saying, I am an expert in. So that's your main topic, your main thing you're good at. And then what you do is on the end of that, you add in particular, and then whatever your specialism is or whatever thing most of your clients want to hear about or have solved, or what most of your clients have a pain point with or will help them move towards pleasure. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes now and I want you to write it down. And I'm going to ask you, please, when you've done it, please share it in the chat and we'll have a look and see what people have done. So remember, mine is I'm an expert in sales, in particular closing. You want it quite short and sweet if you possibly can. And while you're working on your positioning statement, I'm going to address something right at the beginning. And the something right at the beginning is this bit here, which is the word expert. Let me go back. Sometimes we don't like to say we're an expert. We feel a bit like that's showing off. It's because we're British. If we were Americans, right, we wouldn't just be saying we were an expert. We'd be saying things like, you know, we're the best expert in the world, or we're the first or the premier. We'd be going for it. But our British reserve discourages us from saying that we're an expert. So I've got some context for you here. They reckon that you're an expert in something if you've done it for 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours is roughly 6 years of full-time work. So if you've done a job in a particular area for 6 years, you qualify. All right, you can call yourself an expert. It's okay. You're not showing off. You really are an expert. Okay, so what if you're looking at me going, well, that's all very well, Janet, but I haven't done something for 6 years. You probably still know a lot more about your topic than your customers. And if you say, I am an expert, they will believe you. If my positioning statement was, I'm quite good at sales, in particular, quite good at closing, it's not very convincing, is it? It doesn't make you trust me. It doesn't make you think I know what I'm doing. Instead, my doubt comes right out the screen at you and you think, well, actually, I think I'm going to wait until someone better comes along. So get confident with saying, I am an expert in particular, whatever. So let's see what we got. So Leon, oh, well done, you kicked off. I am an expert in communications and in particular mobile phones. Fantastic. Now, Leon, if there is a particular problem that a lot of your customers face, so for example, if you're really good at getting amazing value packages, or perhaps you can get exclusive phones that no one can get, or perhaps, oh, I don't know, you have access to Apple phones before anybody else can, that might be a bit stronger than the mobile phone bit. Just a suggestion. Saz, I'm an expert in communications and in particular outsourcing. Now I like that, but it doesn't really speak to me. So it's technically accurate, but excuse me. The problem with saying communications and in particular outsourcing, maybe it's because I just read Leon's, but I thought, well, you sound like a telecoms expert. All right. So maybe you want to tweak it a bit, because remember, the very fact that you're an expert means that your clients don't necessarily perceive it in the same way you do. Oh, now you see, Leon, I'm starting to understand a bit more about you. Yes, I like it. So Leon's tweaked his. I'm an expert in mobile communications and in particular business contracts. So yeah, and again, you might want, you've got space there. You might want to say something like, in particular, saving money on business contracts. That would do, because I'll show you what we're going to do with this next. Okay, Tamsin, I'm an expert in team working, in particular improving team communication. I would actually tweak that a bit, because the team communication bit as a business owner doesn't really speak to me. Now, if you said something like, in fact, let me ask you the question and you can help, this will help you do your answer. What's the benefit to me of having improved team communication? And it might be productivity or a better workplace or more likely to win contracts. I don't know. So I don't really care about the better communication. What I care about is the result that that brings me. So try and see if you can work that in. Mm-hmm. Christine, I'm an expert in driving down sales without customers knowing they've been sold to. Yeah, you've obviously been on a sales webinar, Christine. That's very naughty. I love it. Okay, Leon's commented, oh no, not saving money, don't want to race to the bottom. Fair enough. So you might want to focus on something like efficiency, or I don't know, contracts that benefit them, or getting them extra value. So, you know, just suggestions. And Jay, I'm a startup expert, in particular making more money. Yeah, what you might want to say is in particular making money fast. Because if I was a startup and I've got no money, my main priority is to put a house round me and food on the table and clothe my children. Gary, I'm an expert in marketing, particularly get into your business. Yeah, right. Yeah, Gary's got it. I'm an expert in marketing, in particular, getting your business to the #1 page of Google. I know what Gary does. And if I want to get to the #1 page in Google, I'm remembering Gary. Okay, I'll just do one more. So Leon, I'm an expert in mobile communications and in particular helping businesses who have mobile phones but still do paperwork. Yeah, I bet that's huge actually. Yeah. Probably a bit long now, but I've given you tons of feedback. But look, you get the idea and you can work on this after the webinar. So let me show you what you do with it. You say this thing to them. So my thing is, I'm an expert in sales, in particular closing. And then I shut up and I let them respond. And I'll tell you what will happen. Some people will go, okay, and walk off. Well, they might not walk off, but they'll talk about something else. They're not that bothered. Some people will say, oh, I need to talk to you. I had one person say, where have you been all my life? The ones who are interested in what you have will let you know. The ones who are not interested, you can do small talk, you can do chat, you can walk off, because they've suddenly pre-qualified themselves. Everyone will either be, oh, I'm interested in that, or, oh, that's nice, okay, and they're not interested. So now you can do something with that. The ones who are interested, you ask them a question. So remember, my positioning statement is I'm an expert in sales, in particular closing. So now I pick up on the first bit and I ask them this question. What is your biggest challenge regarding sales? And here's the wonderful thing. They've come towards me. So something is wrong. If I ask them that question, what's your biggest challenge regarding sales? So you can substitute your thing you're an expert in. They will tell you. So let's look at the whole thing again. So again, I'll read mine. I'm an expert in sales, in particular closing. They'll say something like, ooh, I need to talk to you. Okay, what's your biggest issue regarding sales? And suddenly you have permission to have a conversation. And what you do with it next is up to you. So if it's a networking group, maybe you go into a room together, real or virtual, and you talk about it. Maybe if it's on the phone, you schedule a meeting. Maybe if they're in your shop, you give them the respect and the attention and have a focused conversation. And that's something I could talk about in another webinar. Obviously, today we're just doing prospecting. But the point is, you're not boring people who don't care. You're having proper conversations only with the ones who do care and are interested. And that's much better for you because you don't feel like you're forcing yourself on somebody, but you're also using your time much better because the conversations you're having are relevant conversations with people who are interested. This is very powerful. I hope you like it. I was at one networking meeting about a month before lockdown. It was full of my perfect clients. And I remember I used this line 10 times. I've never had this success rate before. 10 times people responded with, oh, I like that. In fact, Saz, you might have been there. It was Mavis's event that she had in that hotel in Stratford. And it was the first time, I think it was one of her tea parties.
Okay.
And everyone I asked was interested. Now, it's not always that many. I mean, look, every time you had a meeting, if you got 1 or 2 people interested in your service, that's still a pretty good hit rate. But try it, see how you get on. And if it works, let me know, because I love hearing that stuff. Okay, any questions on that? All right. Welcome, Joanne. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, I said that I'd be giving you some tips on how to use text. Now, texting's lovely. Email open rates are not great. Even if you're really good at sending email marketing, the open rates are not great. And people are kind of fatigued with emails. They don't always open them. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got telephoning. And I know, because this is my world, a lot of people just hate picking up the phone, especially if it's prospecting. Or you might know it as cold calling. But in between, there is a wonderful place. And that wonderful place is working. And it's texting. So it could be Facebook Messenger, regular texts, or WhatsApp, or LinkedIn messaging. I'm using that a lot. So I'm going to give you a structure to follow. Now, this text, one of my clients used, and I'll tell you the rules. But what I'm going to do just now is I'm going to sort of analyze the different bits of it. So with texting, the first rule is it must be people you know. If it's not someone that you're on first name terms with, it's weird. So don't go there. So the first thing is you're not spamming anyone. You're kicking off with, hi, Gary, hi, Joanne, hi, Saz, hi, Christine. And then what you're doing is you're explaining the reason that you're contacting them. So at the moment, all of you have got a good reason to contact people, which is that coming out of COVID, stuff has probably changed. So my suggestion for this lady was, I wasn't sure if you knew, but I've had a bit of a rebrand. Yours might be something like, I wasn't sure if you knew, but since lockdown, I'm now doing blah, blah, blah. But have a reason to contact them. If nothing has changed, you've got no reason to text anybody. So that's the first bit. The next bit is a description of the thing that you do now that's a bit different. So this lady was quite a sort of specialist, unusual thing actually. This lady was, I assist young people who are OCD remain calm and do better at school through theta healing. And we had to explain it with her because a lot of people didn't know what theta healing was. It's a bit like Reiki, but several levels up if you're a theta healing expert. So that was her explanation. Now, what we've got here is we haven't just said, you know, I do theta healing. Are you interested? She's talked about what theta healing actually does for certain people. Theta healing helps young people who are OCD remain calm and do better at school. She's targeting this at parents. Okay, and then the next bit of this text is, who do you know that might appreciate my help? Now, that bit, we need to analyze it. She hasn't said, would you be interested? Because if she said, would you be interested? I'll tell you what everyone's brain will do. They'll look at that and go, no. Because it's the quickest thing for our brains in these busy worlds we inhabit. Even if we want to help this person because she's our friend, because she's on first name terms with us, we're only going to give her so much time. And it's easy for your brain to either go yes or no. Do you know anyone? Yes or no? Thinking, no. Your brain's dealt with it. By saying, who do you know, it takes your brain to a different place. It's telling your brain that you know someone, because the way you're asking the question is, who do you know? It's assumptive. You must know someone. Who do you know? So your brain works a little bit harder to come up with someone. Now, I'm not saying it's going to, you know, they're not going to be sitting there in 3 hours' time still trying to think of it, but they will give you more attention. So they're more likely to come up with someone. But here's the other really cool bit. You have specifically said, who do you know? If I'm sending this text to Joanne, I haven't said, Joanne, do you want to use my service? I've said, Joanne, who do you know? But Joanne might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't know anyone, but actually, I'm really interested in that. So this simple little sentence, who do you know that might appreciate my help, does lots of things on lots of levels. And then finally, you just sign off with however you'd normally sign off. So in her case, many thanks, Hilary. So on this slide, I've given you an outline that you can use as well. So again, I would suggest you write down in your notes your version of this. So hi, name. So anyone you're on first name terms with, friends, family, doesn't matter who. I wasn't sure if you knew, but I've had a bit of a rebrand. Or I wasn't sure if you knew, but since COVID, my business is doing this. Or since lockdown's finished, I'm now doing whatever you're doing. Or recently I've started to focus on some different thing. And then in the middle, I just realized all the lines still fit. Then in the middle, you put the thing you do and relate it to the pain that you solve or the pleasure that you help people move towards. So just a little sentence, a sound bite. Then word for word, who do you know that might appreciate my help? And sign it off with a many thanks in your name. And this is what you should do. Every day, send that to 10 people. Don't send it to 20, don't send it to 50, send 10 a day. Because on average, my clients get 1 or 2 responses from every 10. And most of you know enough to do this for a couple of weeks. And the magic of texts are people tend to open them still. Now, I'm not saying it will always be the case, but they tend to open them. I would recommend for this, you probably use either WhatsApp or the just ordinary messaging service on your phone. There's other techniques you can do on Messenger and LinkedIn, but this is people you actually know. If you start cold calling people or cold messaging people with this, you won't get anywhere. This is people you know. And it's really super effective. Interestingly, it didn't work very well for me, which I'd put down to the fact that I'm absolutely fine with picking up the phone. But if you hate picking up the phone, this will really help you. Okay, any questions on that? Okie dokie. Right then, so let's move on. All good, we're making good time. So I'm going to show you some statistics now, because although this webinar is about prospecting, you might not be aware of some of the science behind sales and marketing, really. So it costs 6 to 7 times as much to acquire a new customer as it does to retain an existing one. So what this is all about is, don't think you need to get hundreds of new customers. You might find that by being a bit clever and just having a chat with existing customers, you pick up more work from them at less expense. Because there's a 60 to 70% chance of selling to an existing customer compared to 5 to 20% for a new one. So the way you can use that, let's say you've sold something to a customer, whatever it is you do, maybe you can introduce a new product or service or something extra or something new. So instead of killing yourself and spending a lot of money trying to reach new customers, a quick win for you would be to approach existing customers, either by phoning or by using that text I just showed you, or perhaps email, or any technique at all really, but just saying, look, hey, don't know if you knew, but now we do this. And you will pick people up, because if you've done a good job of looking after them, they already know, like, and trust you. And what I've just described is something called upselling or cross-selling. And the best example that I can give you is Amazon. So I bet you've all used Amazon or some other online shopping platform. You buy the thing you're buying. And then when you try and check out, sneaky old Amazon says, people who bought that also bought this. And you end up buying stuff that maybe you need, maybe you don't. But because your brain is in the space where it's buying, you go, oh yeah, why not? 35%. Is Amazon the biggest company in the world? It's either there or thereabouts, I'm not sure. Yeah. So if the most successful company in the world is using this, there's a reason. So get in the habit of upselling and cross-selling to existing customers. And then McDonald's, another company that's not too shabby. All they do is say, would you like fries with that? Or would you like a drink? Or do you want a large meal? That's all they do. And we don't even notice. They're so good at it. We don't feel like we're being squeezed out of money. We just go yes or no. And all right, half the time you might say no. But enough people say yes to make a massive difference to their profits. So if you can't handle more customers, or you don't have the budget to spend on marketing, focus on your existing customers, because there's a very good chance that you can get them to increase their spend relatively easily. All right, any questions on that part? Okay, so we're moving on to conclusion really. So the fortune is in the follow-up. I've given you some techniques for prospecting here, but there's lots of other things you can do with people that perhaps are, you remember the warm prospect list at the beginning? So perhaps people you've reached out to and it didn't work the first time, but you do want to keep in touch with them. But at the same time, you don't want to turn into a stalker. And if you really do hate making phone calls, what else can you do? So I've got some suggestions. When you're thinking about how to follow up with customers, what you want to do is something called touch them. So a touch is any time you have a contact with a customer. So it could be they visit your website, they walk into your physical shop, they see you at a networking meeting, they comment on a piece of social media, they open one of your emails, you post them something like a flyer and they see it. Every single one of these is a touch. So have a reason to get in touch with them. So here are some reasons. Some people have seasonal goods. I went into a garden centre in Cruise Hill 2 days ago. They've got the complete Christmas grotto and the music and the snow and the reindeer and everything. So possibly a little previous there, but as seasons change, we have reasons to buy things. So is your product or service seasonal? Here's another one. Have you got a new offering? Are you introducing something new? Well, tell people about it. It could be something easy like a newsletter, but tell people about it. If you're a service-based industry, I bet you don't do annual reviews. Now, some of you might, but it's a great excuse to get in touch with customers. And if you're looking at me going, well, we didn't agree we were going to do an annual review, they don't know that. Just contact them and say, look, it's time for your annual review. And they'll go, yeah, all right. And then you've got a reason to talk to them, find out if they're happy. And then you can use that as an opportunity to talk to them about new products and services as well. Another reason to get in touch, this is a sort of COVID topical one. Do you remember at the beginning of COVID when everyone was a bit confused and all they did was keep going to the fridge? Well, loads of people have got fat. Some people have got really thin. Some people are more healthy. Some people are less healthy. So if you deal with clients who have, for some reason, changed physically, and I'd also include things like pregnancy and having babies and losing weight afterwards, or just getting older. So if something significant has happened in their life, that's a reason to get in touch. And no, I'm not saying you're going to ring someone up and go, hey, you're looking a bit fat. Hey, let me sort you out. I don't mean that. But be aware that people's physicality can be a reason to get in touch. Then there's the classics, events. So wedding, new baby, new job, engagements, big birthdays. I do a lot of work with estate agents, and one of the things I encourage them to do is send a happy first anniversary card when they've been in their property for a year. Because everyone sends a card when they move in. Congratulations on your new home. But it's a bit different, isn't it, to send an anniversary card? So think about what you can do. It's a wee bit different. Got a few image consultants I work with. So what about a post-lockdown wardrobe? A lot of people are really struggling because they've still got lockdown hair. They haven't been shopping. They're sick of wearing tatty clothes. And now they're starting to have to go to meetings again. Their clothes don't fit for some of the reasons we explained before. So be creative and think of reasons to follow up with people. And follow up, do it regularly. I was one of the lucky ones. I was extremely busy over lockdown, and I put that down in part to the fact that I realized people have more time to talk. So I just messaged people and said, do you fancy a chat? And I had no agenda. I wasn't trying to flog my stuff, but a couple of times just talking about, oh, I don't know, face masks and flowers and the weather and, you know, I had a cough. Does that mean I'm ill? 2 people asked me about my coaching packages, which I then signed up to. Now that's a really big ticket item for me. And the 2 I'm thinking of, I had not a clue they were interested. But because I'd reached out to them as human beings to just have a chat, then it created the space where they actually felt I was an appropriate person to work with. The other thing you can do is offer help, support and advice. So on social media, you know, when you see people just posting adverts, you know, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing, you don't read it. But if you offer help, then people will engage. So I use LinkedIn a lot. Nearly all my posts are about stuff that's going to help people. Here's a tip. Here's another tip. Did you know if you did this, this will happen? And then people engage and they get to know you. So offer help, support and advice. You can also send something memorable. I'm going to tell you an example. This lady has made a career out of being a speaker from this story. She sold stationery on the phone and she hated it. And she told the story about how one day she rang someone up to do her pitch and she realized he wasn't very well. So instead of doing her pitch, she did the equivalent of say, I'm supposed to be selling you stationery, but I can tell you're not very well, so I'm not going to bother you, and I hope you feel better soon, bye-bye. And then was massively relieved because it's a phone call she didn't have to have. And then she felt sorry for him. So she posted him a packet of lockets with, you know, get well soon. Thought no more about it, carried on making phone calls that she hated. Apparently 3 days later, when he was better, she got a phone call from this guy. And he said, thank you, I got the lockets. Get a pen, please. So she got a pen. And he proceeded to give her the biggest order she had ever had in her entire career. It shot her to the top of the sales table. And she said it was really brilliant. But the trouble was everyone suddenly thought she was really good at sales and kept asking her for advice. And she still really hated the job. But what did she do? She reached out as a human being. She thought outside the box. It probably didn't even cost her £1, maybe £1.50 with postage. But look what it achieved. So you haven't got to be a slave to what other people tell you. React to your clients as another human being. And remember, it takes 7 to 12 touches for someone to buy from you. All right. So I'm quickly going to promote something I do, and then we'll conclude with a bit of a summary. So I've mentioned that I do sales training, which I do. And I've got one starting next week, which is Thursday, the 5th of November. I thought that'd be a nice, easy day to remember. I do a 6-week course called How to Sell. The usual price is $400, but you can have it for $295. If you're interested, let me know, because you've been on this webinar, you can come on it for $295. But whether you're interested in the training or whether you're not, I do have a freebie for you if you're interested, which is my book. It's called Small Business Sales Dilemmas, and it's 50 real-life case studies to help you sell more. If you want it, I've got my phone number there. All I want you to do is text me the word book, and I'll send you a copy of my book. I'll contact you after for your address. And I'd also really like it if you would connect with me on LinkedIn. As I share loads of tips on LinkedIn, so that would be lovely. All right. Now, let's conclude. One message. Remember, we love to buy, but everyone hates to be sold to. So I'm going to summarize with stuff you can do right now that will help you sell, but without your customers feeling like you're selling to them. Actually, it will all help you buy. So remember that slide about all those lovely qualities that you have, things like listening and giving people time. Your natural qualities make you good at selling. You don't have to have the gift of the gab. You don't have to have the foot in the door technique. You don't need to use tricks and techniques to trick people into buying from you. You just got to be really nice and care about how what you have helps them. Write down from that list, in fact, I think you all did it. Write down the main reasons your customers will buy from you. It will help remind you when you're having conversations what to say to them. Create yourself a warm prospect list, completely free, piece of paper, sellotape it to your desk, write on it, update it, cross it out, scribble on it. It'll be the dirtiest, most used piece of paper you've got, but completely free. You'll always have it nearby to remind you who you need to speak to. When you come across potential customers or prospects, qualify whether they're worth bothering with by using man in a hurry. Have they got the money to buy from you? Is the person you're talking to the decision maker, the person with authority to make that decision? Do they need or want the thing that you offer? And is there enough urgency for them to make a decision now? When you meet new people for the first time, either networking, face-to-face, or on the phone, make sure you've got a great positioning statement. Use it, see what works, observe who comes towards you, and then you know what to do now. You can start to have a conversation. If they're not bothered, that's fine, leave them be. Concentrate on the ones who come towards you because they're much better prospects. With texting, create a little template and send 10 texts every day. Maybe the amount of contacts you've got, it'll take you a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, but just do it. 10 a day, just see what happens. And if you're going to follow up, which you should do because it takes between 7 and 12 touches for someone to buy, sometimes more, sometimes less, but take that as an average. So follow up creatively. Don't just ring them, don't just email them, mix it up a bit. Do the equivalent of sending a packet of lockets. Okay, that's it, everyone. So a reminder, if you want a book, just text me on that number and I'll get in touch with you afterwards and I'll send you a book absolutely free. And I'm now going to open up the floor to find out if there are any questions. And if you do, I will be very happy to help answer them for you. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to have a look in the chat, see what we've got here. Okay. Now Amit has, oh, very smart. Amit's just used this time to come up with a text message. So let's have a look at this. Hi, John. Since lockdown began, I've started providing digital marketing. I now assist small businesses or professionals find their customers in less than a week. No, not do you know anyone? Who do you know who needs to find potential clients? No, in fact, who do you know who needs new clients? There you go. Who do you know who needs to find potential? Who do you know who needs new clients? Okay. All right, so any questions? Please unmute yourself if you have any questions. I'd be delighted to answer. And don't forget to text me if you want the book. I'll whack it through to you immediately.
I've got one question, Jeanette. You know, with my business, yeah, could I use, because obviously I spend all day, you know, phoning the agent as well as landlord. Could I use it for the landlord, the text messaging?
So how does your business work? Is your customer the landlord or is your customer the renter?
No, the landlords are people who provide a unit for me, like a flat, say, or an HMO, as we were speaking before. My customers really are corporate clients, you know, because I have to write to them like the doctors, nurses, aviation, it could be pilot, it could be airline crews. So I just basically write directly to them, send them emails or personal letter, So
really what you need is as many landlords as you can so that you can populate their properties with tenants.
That's correct,
Right. So I think you need to have a really good positioning statement, which can be your opening line if you speak to them on the phone. So it could be, did you do a positioning statement? I'm an expert in, I'm an expert in driving down sales through without customers knowing they've been sold to. Okay. I
haven't, no.
So probably your positioning statement will be something like, I am an expert in filling, are they short-term lets? Is it Airbnb, that type of thing?
Airbnb, booking.com, corporate client.
I think your positioning statement will be something like, I am an expert in filling short-term lets at the highest price with professionals, something like that.
Okay.
Or I'm an expert in filling short-term lets with professionals who pay above average rates. I don't even know because I don't know what space you're in.
Yeah.
Now that would speak to me as a landlord, because if it's short term, every void day is losing me money. And if you're dealing with professionals, their brain will tell them that professionals are less likely to trash the place and they're more likely to pay money.
Okay.
So if I were you, I'd come up with a really good positioning statement and try it and see if it works. Because if you're on the phone, you need to get their attention fast, because no one likes being cold called. Even I don't like being cold called.
Yeah.
If they do it well, I'll be kind to them. But if they're bad at it, I do tend to get a bit rude.
I try and be as nice as I can.
Yeah.
Well, some of them obviously not interested, but majority of them seems to be quite reasonable. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So look, I hope that's helped. Look, I'm going to see you week after week. So let me know how that goes, and if I can help you with it, I will.
Sure. Thank you.
Right. Good question. Thank you. Anyone else?
Janet, can you put the last slide? Can I take a screenshot of the last slide? The one prior to the one. Yes, this one. Yeah. Just so I just have it pinned down just where I work, so I know.
If you want a recording of the webinar, probably the easiest thing, again, just text me and say recording, and I'll make sure I email you.
Right. Would that include the slides? So you're going to email the slides as well?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know if you were here at the beginning, Amit, but you see how it's doing that really cool thing where it's recording the writing at the bottom.
I see.
I
Okay.
don't know why it's doing it. I love it, but I don't know why it's doing it. So yeah, I'm keeping this presentation.
Okay.
So hopefully it will record the words too. It should do.
Yeah, it is actually. Well,
Hmm.
voice recognition. Okay.
I don't know. It's magic and it's wonderful. Anyone else got anything they would like to ask?
No.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you so much, everyone.
Janet, I want to say how brilliant that
Thank
was.
you. Thank
hope
you.
it-
That was brilliant. Absolutely.
You're so welcome. And if you get the chance, pop over to Google and give me a review for being
I
helpful
will
to people.
definitely thoroughly enjoyed it.
Gary's nodding. Yeah, he does my social media. Yeah, we need the Google reviews. But look, I really appreciate this, and please spread the word because I'm going to be doing one every Thursday on a different topic. And you've been an absolutely super audience. Thank you so much for
Thank you. Thank you. Being the best
Thank you.
host.
Thank you,
Thank
Janet.
you.
That's really good.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Janet, that was great.
Oh, thank you.
That was-
Let's just stop.